All right, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I would like to call the first organizational meeting of the Cape Vincent Local Development Corporation to order. And I would ask our secretary, Kathy, to take a roll call, please.
Okay. Nadira. Absent. Joe.
Here.
Mary Farrell.
Here.
Myself, Mandy.
Here.
Sharon.
Yeah. she just said-
Carol.
Here.
Dan.
Here.
And Pam.
Here.
All right. We're going to move on to the second part of the agenda, which is the special reports. Tracy, thank you for joining us today. We've got Matt and Tracy, but I know we've got Tracy, who's our expert extraordinaire. We do have some questions. I know Kathy's going to start with one, but we would like anyone else who has questions for MRB, the sort of that we haven't done via the myriad of emails that have been sent. So Kathy, let's start with you.
Hi, Tracy. One of the questions that came up from one of our board members was whether they could vote by proxy. I'm not familiar with that in the context of a board meeting. Do you happen to know whether a board member can essentially submit their vote by proxy?
Not with a public authority.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was just like written consent. I had a feeling that was going to be the case. The also is, do you happen to be familiar with any of the, we're in the process of getting quotes for insurance. And I'm wondering if you have had any experience with that or have any guidance as far as what kind of policies these types of organizations usually have, or is it sort of case dependent?
It's somewhat case dependent and something to work through with, your selected insurance agent, but generally speaking, you would want to have some sort of like commercial liability type policy. And then a lot of public authorities do have a directors and officers policy. It's good practice to cover the actions of your officers. And then, public authorities are starting to get into things like cybersecurity policies and things like that. But the two main ones, especially, I don't believe you have any like buildings or assets like that at this point. So the two main ones would be kind of your commercial liability and your directors and officers.
Thank you.
So Tracy, we do rent an office space. Should we have a renter's insurance?
I would think that could be covered in your commercial liability policy. And that's just something to confirm with the insurance agent.
Okay, it's not like we have a lot there, but just wanted to make sure if that was.
And actually, I just glanced at our lease and the proposed lease, and they actually have insurance requirements in the lease. So we'll probably have to meet those.
Okay,
So
great, thank you. All right, who else from the board has any questions for MRB?
I got one. We brought up the video conferencing process at our town board meeting the other night, and both the town clerk and our supervisor said we wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Do you know what it entails? I said, I have no clue. So is there more to it than we think?
So you do need to put a policy into place. That was not included in the batch that we wrote for you because we it wasn't a thing at the time. But basically that policy would set out the circumstances under which it would be acceptable for a board member to attend remotely. You would still need to have a quorum in person to have a meeting, but under this policy, it would allow remote participants to vote. They just don't count towards quorum. So it's just a matter of having that policy. We've written a couple of them already. So we could send you a couple of examples, and then it would just be a matter of putting that policy in place. And then you actually have to follow the policy. That's the hardest part, is just following the policies that you've made. And then I do believe you do need to record, if anybody is participating remotely, you do need to record the meeting and have it posted in some way, shape, or form.
So from a
And you need to
municipality
allow-
standpoint?
What's that?
From a municipality standpoint, what's the difference? Because they said it was, you have to go through a public hearing, you gotta set up laws.
You do, so a public authority would need to hold a public hearing. But you would just hold a public hearing and then you would vote on the policy. It's not, you know, it's a little bit more restrictive for a municipality. They have to pass a local law, but you're not a lawmaking entity. So you just have to hold a public hearing before you pass the policy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and when you look, if you look at resolution 11, that is going to be at least the resolution to adopt a video conferencing policy. The policy itself is not attached. But what I did when I drafted that is I basically went through the law and wrote out each of the requirements of the law. And I mean, when we get to that point, I certainly would like people's feedback about the feasibility of this type of policy, because it's fairly demanding, to be honest. It's got, you know, recording this and you have to post it on the website within this period of time and everything else. And again, it's fine as long as we understand.
Right.
And it may be an essential part of our operations because of Nadira.
Definitely.
So
No.
Great. Other questions for MRB?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is part of your MRB's things you were doing for us, is it filing the 501c3 or is that not? I was reading the minutes from the joint meeting and it indicated there that MRB is waiting for the 501c3 status to come through. I don't think that's accurate.
So we were not doing the filing. We provided a lot of the documents and then they were working with an attorney to actually do the filing.
Who's they?
The committee that was setting up the
Okay,
LDC.
okay, all right. So
We referred them over to an attorney to do the actual filing work.
That was for the certificate of incorporation, not the 501(c)(3).
Yeah, we haven't started that yet. So.
Okay. I just want to clarify, I was looking at the minutes or the notes from September 22nd's meeting and it sounded, I didn't think that was accurate. So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any other questions? No, I mean, Tracy, you're going to stay with us as we get to resolutions and keep us on track, right? Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Yes.
All
Should say
right.
my name out loud because I might be multitasking.
I understand, not a problem. I do it all the time. All right. Next on the agenda is a report from Scott on the DRI walkthrough and other projects. Scott?
Sure. This year, the North Country Regional Council did the DRI in New York Ford's a little different, which I think was very beneficial to the Cape. Instead of just inviting finalists to do a 20-minute or 30-minute slideshow presentation via Zoom, the regional director that's in charge of the selection committee actually scheduled walkthrough appointments and came out here. Our walkthrough was October 5th, so the week they invited us on like a Thursday, so that weekend I worked with Jay to develop a cut sheet and handout of our projects, our core projects, because they wanted it within the forward area that you could walk. We came up on the 4th, Christine and drove through the parking lot and talked to us, and Jerry and Jay, and we went through the total dry run, started at the one East End Park and went through every stop, and we went in the car like we were going to, and just went through our minutes, notes, and then on the 5th, he came up and we spent an hour with him, and it was very productive. I thought it went very well. He was very impressed. Steve Hunt lives in Chameau, and he says he comes up to the Cape every other weekend for different events you have. And he said, when I came up here, I really thought I wasn't going to learn anything I didn't know. And he said, I'm just overwhelmed with the information, the potential you have. And he said to expect a finals interview. I do know from speaking to other people, there were 20 applications. They did invite us last Thursday to an interview on Monday. So on Monday we did, they didn't do presentations this year. They said Steve reported back to them. He's not a vote, but he reported out all of his visits back to them. And so we were supposed to have a 15-minute interview. It went about 25. I had participated in one earlier, so I knew the process and the questions. So in between that one and this one, I took notes, and Jerry met me here at 4, and we zoomed in with Jay, and we went over all of our notes and how the process was going to be. And I think it went very well. The some of the interviewers were the same as the past couple of years. And the one gentleman pointed out that we are one of the most passionate communities about our proposal and the projects within them. And that he could tell that we were taking their comments to heart over the last couple of years and making changes. And I pointed out, yes, sir, last year you really didn't like our bike trail. I said, so we went back to a public hearing and we went back to our engineers and we reduced that project down into just Broadway and the road diet. And that's kind of a direct reflection to your comments. And he said that was already noted in our scoring that you made those changes. So I thought Pam was here. I thought it went excellent. I'm very excited about the opportunity.
Scott, do we know when they're gonna make their final decisions?
He said, I know that they all have to report their selection to the governor's office by the 31st. I didn't expect it until maybe the end of November, but with the polls and the governor's race tightening, you may see something before election day.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but I would think that when Belding gets as close as he is to her in the polls anyway, she might hand out some money before the election day.
Okay.
We were told it would be quick. And they don't normally roll those out all in the same day. They normally like to travel and get a picture taken with the community. And so we are in the running. We were in the running for the $10 million. And that's how we kind of got invited. But the New York Forward would also be a $4.5 million one. So we were in the running for both. I don't know the breakdown of the 20 applicants, how many were New York Forward and how many were DRI. But I do know compared to other regions, I was in a meeting yesterday with Central New York and they only had 14 applications for Central New York. That's according to the whole area. So North Country was competitive.
Oh, good.
So
Any other project updates that you wanted to share? I know you've shared your written report, but anything from a public perspective?
We do have a full day scheduled next Thursday with Department of State. They're coming up here in person. We're starting at 10 o'clock and we're going to have Pam and Danny there. And we're going to zoom in EDR. The first 15 minutes of the meeting are going to be a discussion about the LWRP plan, the joint plan, and update on that. And then we're going to move into the ready projects and we're going to discuss the status of each ready project, where they're at. All but 2 of them are under contract now. There's 4, but 3 of them are one project. East End Park is 3 grant contracts and we're still waiting for the permitting. They won't issue the GDA until the permitting's in place. The other one, we just needed to make a budget change because we were under budget. And if we didn't spend another $7,000 in our budget, we would have had to redo all the paperwork and start over. So the village is buying as we speak.
That's why we're going over.
They're
big
buying
tables and benches.
$7,000 worth of new benches and handicap accessible picnic tables. So
Yeah.
I have the new budget from PCNA and that's been submitted. So we're gonna go into the ready and then we're gonna actually go on a tour, take them down to each ready project and have lunch. And then in the afternoon, it's going to be the initial kickoff meeting for the East End Park LWRP. One of the tasks of the contract is you have to have a committee, but we're so far ahead in design that we are just getting 5 people together that are already involved in the other committee in the project. Jerry, Mike, Marty, myself, and Christine's going to join us for that portion of the meeting. So it will check the box for our contract and be a task that's complete. So we're going to have officials from Albany here for about 4 hours to go through everything. And then I got to have them back to Watertown by 2:30. So it's going to be sent on an agenda. It's all timed and it's, they asked that I coordinate it and schedule the agenda and keep them on pace so she can get to Watertown.
Any idea of when the permitting for East End is gonna, any kind of a,
No, because I heard today that there's some confusion on it.
Okay.
The state actually wrote us last month and said, congratulations, you got approval of your permit and it will be in the mail in the next 2 months. Well, that apparently now I guess is the permit we already knew we had and the other permit we haven't heard from.
It's the Corps of Engineers, right, that we're
Right.
waiting on.
But there's a 408B permit that we already had, and that's what it was, and she didn't really, I mean, we didn't ask for an update, they just congratulated us, so we assumed it was the new permit. And now I think we're hearing, I just heard before this at another meeting that it wasn't the one. So the, everything else is going well, reports are being submitted quarterly. I did provide you a little different report this time that has all the meetings that I've been attending and calls that I've been participating in, so you can see the time and what meetings we're attending.
Yeah, the reports are very good, so thank you.
Restore New York is being announced tomorrow. The letter of intent is due November 30th, and the applications are due January 27th. The town has 2 potential projects, and you can only submit one. So the town's going to have to make a decision on what they're going to select for a project. I think some of it's going to be based on timing and construction, because the one person we've met with was Ron Clapp and the villa. If that's the project, he's going to have to be ready to go next year. He's going to have by January 15th, the application is going to have to include engineering report, a third-party budget. It's going to have to include financial information from a bank that he has the financing to do the project. If he's not ready to do that, then the second project is Brian Stump. He owns the old, like a barn right now across from Steve Hall's house, but apparently it's an old one-room schoolhouse that his mother or somebody went to school in. I met him up there last week and went through it. He wants to restore the building and turn it into like a local market to sell. They have cattle there that they want to sell beef, and he makes honey, but he also wanted to have other vendors sell their local products.
There's got goats over there too.
There was a bunch of cows that were chasing after us when we were walking out there. So that's going to be up to the town and who they submit. And, and I think I mentioned it last time, Brian's interested in submitting because his neighbor is Steve Hunt, the director of Empire State Development that controls the grants. And the neighbor said to him, hey, you should submit your application. So it kind of puts us in a tough spot, I think, in a way.
Just curious, so because we're in this transitional period, so Restore New York is January, but we would have that submitted by the town and not the LDC?
That has to be, that's a municipal application. So
Got
that
it,
has to-
okay.
Because
Thank
part
you.
of the Restore program is the owner of the building actually has to sign off ownership to the town during the construction, and then the town turns it back over.
Okay,
Like the money is going to go through, it has to go through the town, and they have to take ownership of the property
okay,
during construction. And then they
thanks,
turn it
that
back.
makes sense, that makes
So
sense,
so that grant itself would have to go through the town.
okay. That
And
makes
we've
sense.
talked about projects in the village, but I don't think there's any buildings that meet that other than we talked about tearing down the property that they bought, but the end use cannot be municipally owned, so that won't qualify.
Oh, the Sylvie house?
The parking lot. by
Everly, that's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Okay, so for those of us who don't know what that is.
The
What
Everly
house is that?
property, Everly
Milk
is
plant.
over next to Mandy.
The milk plant, the.
Oh, the old milk plant, got it, okay, so we
So
can't,
if there is any vacant properties in the village that could have a good end use, we could apply for a village grant too, but I talked to Jerry and Marty, and there's nothing that we really could think of that could take advantage of it.
okay,
And it's unfortunate that both the other projects are in the town, so the village couldn't put in an application for it.
okay, good. Just for clarity, the local waterfront revitalization project plan,
Plan.
oh, I'm so close.
Mhm.
For the public, hi Mary, thanks for joining. So we've written that, we've updated it. We're waiting for them to approve it, right? So that's kind of what this update is, that you think after this meeting it'll be done? I mean, I'm just kind of, where are we
We
on
met
that?
this morning. I met with EDR, Erica Tauser and Irene from the Department of State. Went through mapping in the waterfront area. She hopes to have it submitted to legal by Friday.
Okay,
And she's even optimistic enough to say when she comes up and meets with us on Thursday, that she may have a nod that it goes to the 60-day review.
Okay.
So,
Is there a possibility just for us to put it on our Google Drive to have a copy of the current state, just so everybody on the board can see it? Because I don't know that I've seen it.
There is a PDF of the current state. It may get revised again, but I guess we could just.
Well,
upload it
just,
again.
yeah, just say this is the version of this date.
The working version.
You can, it might make sense till it goes to the 60-day review, because that's what it's for.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
final document.
Okay.
We'll see if you can get a PDF, because the copy we have is workable, so anybody. that
Yeah,
touches
yeah,
it
no,
can
we
use
would
it.
just want, we would
We
just
don't
want a
have a-
PDF, but I'm just thinking people on this board, you know, if somebody, again, if somebody from the community asks us something, it's nice if we have like a clue,
Mhm.
you know,
We can have her make us.
that'd be
the
great.
link we
That
have
would be
is
great. And then
workable,
if you
guys
send it
can
to me,
go
I'll
in
get it up on the
and-
Google Drive so that, because everybody on the board has access to that and they can look it over. And I'll make sure it's clearly marked that it's, you know, current working draft.
And then the other two open projects, the local waterfront, East End Park, the village has a contract now. And the town Tibbet Point Parks and Rec project, Marty just signed the contract this afternoon. So
That's for the shoreline
That's for the
remediation.
shoreline. Marty signed the contract.
Where are we on the windows up there? I mean, is that, I know everything's sort of holding whether the parks wants to take it over or whatever. Because
This is
we have
another
a
issue.
grant for the windows,
This is
right?
another issue with Dasney. Marty met with Ann Shaw. And I asked Marty to include me in the meeting, and he didn't include me, and he included Tim White. And Ann Shaw told him that there was a bunch of documents missing that they didn't have. And I have all the emails from last August from Dasney staff that says, thank you for answering our questions. Your project is now going to financial review. And that's the exact opposite of what Ann Shaw told Marty. And I have it in writing from their employees. I mean, it says, all your financial documents have been accepted and we're submitting it for financial review. So Marty is working that out with the state now. He forwarded that to them
Okay.
and said, hey, we had verification that you've accepted it. So I don't know where that is at this point. The
Okay,
money's there. They just need a GDA or contract
to do it.
to do it.
Yeah.
Well, if we
Mark-
have to resubmit the information, we can, but they had it.
Okay. Dan, have we heard anything from New York State Parks?
No, other than the fact that regarding the windows,
Right,
if the grant goes through, our plan is to buy the windows and the state would put them in.
okay. So, all right.
But there was language in the contract for the shoreline about the transfer. So they did have a separate add-on that if the work was completed before the transfer, it was transferred to the state. So they are including language in our
Yeah,
contracts.
I mean, Dan has told us, I mean, they're working on it, but it's the state. They're
It's the
working on it.
state.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. That was very good. Anybody else? Any questions? Anybody on the phone? Any questions for Scott?
Sorry, I just had a quick go back on that LWRP. Now, I still get confused when you say that it's going for that 60-day approval. Is that to approve sort of all phases that were laid out in the initial?
The state has to publish that for 60 days for other agencies and the public to comment on it. So
Okay.
that's basically saying that they accept it as is, but the public and the other state agencies have 60 days to comment on that. And if there's comments back that need to be addressed, there can be changes. But when they put it out to 60-day review, the Department of State and their lawyers and their environmental say they agree with what's in there. But then they still have to have a 60-day review for other agencies and the public to comment. So at the end of the 60 days, they could come back and say, DEC wants to see this changed and Parks wants to see this changed. So then we will have to make those changes to it before it's adopted.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, great. Thank you, Scott. All right, officer reports.
Well, before you go to the officers' report,
Oh, did you want to do your announcement?
I do, just because I want to
Yep.
step out. So first of all, congratulations. I asked Marion and Kathy if I could be here tonight I am stepping back from the LDC, but I wanted to be here for the first official meeting because it's been a long road and it's been my pleasure to work with everybody. But I did, I've seen most everybody, but like Sharon, I hadn't spoken to, so it's been great. I had asked that I was made the chairman of the Club Street Steering Committee because I'm also the president of the Improvement League. And so I just asked that you guys consider when you meet, I know you're gonna consider making the the Club Street Steering Committee a subcommittee of the LDC. And I would like to put forth my nomination to remain the chairman and tied to it. And therefore, it's kind of one of those lingering projects that I still have, I think, sufficient institutional knowledge to keep that going. And it'll keep me tied in with the LDC, reporting to you on any and all activities that have to do with Club Street. And then in the event that Pam can't make it to an LDC meeting, I would be the village rep in her absence. But pending any questions, I just wanted to make that announcement and say I appreciated being able to be here to see it all come together. It's like, having a baby. And so here's the baby and this is my birthday.
Speaking of which, another girl.
But, oh, no.
What do you mean, oh, no?
That means she's gonna have to go for 5.
I
didn't
told
even
her.
realize that was happening.
I didn't mean to get off track.
Congratulations.
So Dan's gonna be a granddaddy again. So anyways, thank you all. If nobody has any questions, just let me know what you guys decide when you go into your session, but otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and step out. and
Well,
let
before
guys
you
get
step
to-
out, I would personally like to thank you for all that you have done at the committee level. Sometimes I wonder if I should thank you for getting me involved, but we'll see. But I definitely want to thank you for all you've done and all you've continued to do with sending us things that you look up, and your research has been incredibly helpful in getting us to tonight. So I just want to publicly thank you for all you've done for the LDC.
Okay, well, thank
And I
you.
think-
Thank you all.
Just to clarify on the chair of that committee,
Yes,
that's a town. That is a town project, has to be administered by the town. Because that's how the grant went through.
Dan, we understand that when we talk about the resolution, what we were saying is we will probably, as future things go forward on Club Street, that we would like to continue to have a steering committee and a subcommittee for us, and we don't want to have, we don't want to have a separate one. Right? That would just seem silly since that whole group has
Yeah.
I'm not
institutional.
proposing that. I'm just saying the
Right.
fact that you asked for our blessing to chair that, that's fine, but it doesn't mean you're going to. It's a town.
right. And if you
Just-
remember, that's why I came to the town meeting.
Yep.
And basically gave the same pitch and said, I'd like to remain,
Right.
it
No, I
didn't-
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, that's,
How we've handled the resolution is that the committee for the LDC will duplicate the town. I mean, that's really what it's, so whoever happens to be
Yeah,
on
which
that
makes sense.
committee is gonna be on our committee.
is there
So-
someone from the town that is gonna get back to me, or do I need to follow back up with someone?
I think someone's gonna get back to you.
Well, and that's what, when I leave here, I kind of want to know, am I gonna continue to
I'll
work on it,
confirm
or,
everything. You're fine. Just
okay,
Keep doing what you're doing.
don't let me spin my wheels in a direction that they don't need to spin.
No
'cause
spinning.
I get going and,
Get traction. Keep traction going.
Yeah.
That's
all right,
That committee's already been submitted to the state and accepted by,
right.
I mean, I don't think that's part of the grant.
well, Dan wants to make sure he's pissing on his tree over here, so
What's that?
No,
just let me know, so, but otherwise, there's not much going on right now, so,
Nope. For sure.
other than.
There will be.
Other
there's
than,
gonna be, because we gotta get moving.
Right.
well, and I'm gonna send a note to you that says, I went to the town to give them an update. And maybe the LDC is going to, breathe new life into it. All right, that keeps us
Very good.
current. All right, guys,
Thank
thank
you.
you, have a great
Thank
night. Sorry, it was your first
All right.
and your last meeting I saw with you.
All right, officers report. Chairperson, I have nothing significant to report. Vice chairperson,
Nothing is enough.
nothing to significant to report. Secretary,
Nothing significant to report, although next time I will be just submitting the minutes for approval from this meeting. So that's going to be sort of the standard of what I talk about. So
excellent. And Carol, treasurer, anything significant?
Also, no report.
Okay, excellent. All right, executive director, Dan.
Nada.
Nothing. We just want to get through this now. Committee reports, finance. Joe, would you like to talk a little bit about finance and kind of what we've done so far?
We could, based on our meeting.
Yeah, I would just talk a little debrief on the meeting.
Yeah, we talked about the insurance, which we spoke about earlier. We talked about the bank account, setting up bank accounts where we want to use the same bank as the town and village, which I think we said we did.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that was the
Yeah, that was
meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah, I mean, just basically, so just to remind people, Joe is the chair of the finance subcommittee, and that group includes Carol, Kathy, and myself. Now, we also have a governance committee, which, to the best of my knowledge, Sharon, you are the chair of that. Mandy, Nadira, and Kathy are on that. Sharon, I don't believe you guys have had any reason to meet yet since we haven't had our organizational meeting, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, that's correct. Yeah, we hadn't met yet.
Okay, so governance, no, nothing significant to report at this point. And at this point, we have no other committees. Okay, old business. Dan, anything to update on the town's activities?
No, pretty much hit it. You know, with the LWRP, we are optimistic with the Tibbetts. We were worried about getting permits, but we understand from the engineer that a lot of the work is above the high water mark. So we're hoping we can get that done now with the water so low. So,
Well, is that just rock, or are they gonna do something with that fence?
well, they're gonna take the fence out to get the rock there, and then we're gonna look at designs to replace that fence.
Oh, good, because that
Oh, yeah.
was.
No,
We met today at 3 with BCNA and Billy, and they went over the plans, and I think they're gonna start. I mean, they talked about changing the base, so.
it's awesome with the water down, so.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear
So
this
that's
is
gonna
going
be like
forward.
this year, this fall. They're
Right now,
Good,
hopefully.
good, good,
I
good.
think the intent is maybe go start tomorrow after Mike told them they could today.
Tibbetts Point.
No.
Oh, the Tibbetts Point.
Shoreline, yeah.
Good.
We were worried about having to get permits and not having it available to do until.
I take that back. Before Bernie and Carr's survey team can come out and give him the high level marks, then he can start.
Yeah.
Like he wants some marks on the ground.
No fun.
Yeah,
Water's really
but I
low.
mean, they've got a plan.
Excellent.
If they get the nod, they're gonna get at it. So.
Good.
other
That's
than
great.
that,
That's great.
That's it.
All right, thanks, Dan. Pam, Village.
Nothing really that, we're involved in the LWRP as well. That's a joint plan. So we heard that from Danny and Scott kind of updated, I think, the Ready project. Our docs did come out at Esselstein and our new ones are here and they'll be going in, I think, this week or starting or next week.
Next week, they're gonna build them this week and they're gonna float them down next Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday, I believe.
And other than that, at our last meeting, we talked a little bit about the increased number of Airbnbs in general, but we didn't, we're just reviewing it. Clayton's had a lot of issues and trying to stay ahead of what might be the best way to just be ahead of that curve if all of our houses are going to be turned into that short-term rentals, so.
All right.
How wide is the dock?
16.
16 feet.
All right, I was right.
Okay.
I was telling somebody, they're going, oh, there's no way that's 16 feet. They said, like, is the tube they put together, the two aluminum tops?
I don't know that, but it's
I'm not
16
sure.
feet.
It's gonna be just like the other one.
The
So maybe
state
there's
line-
two pieces under on
The
the
state
new.
line is gonna go down to 12. and
Right.
We said, no way, you can't park a large boat on a 12-foot dock.
I think they'd have to go together, Dan,
From the
when I
looking
walk
at
over,
them.
walk over.
Anyway,
You
Our
guys
guys
have
leave
really
lots of
been
the dog.
looking at the pieces.
thank you.
That's all, nothing else.
Kids are very
Great,
interested
thanks,
in them.
Pam. Okay, Mandy, over to you. Any updates on the childcare project?
No, to be honest, I haven't had a chance to really dive in to get.
Really? Have
I
you
know.
just been answering our
I
emails?
have.
Unbelievable.
So no, I haven't tackle that more.
No problem, no problem. We got
But
plenty
if
to do with the
yeah, Jamie has
resolutions.
another baby, maybe she'll.
Since there's nobody here from the floor, we had one public person and we bored her to death, so she left. We will move on to new business. So at this point, we are going to get into the resolutions, but Scott, you're certainly welcome to leave if you don't, because we're sort of through with your report. You don't have to go through all this. It's up to you. I know you got to go all the way back to West Carthage, so. I mean,
I'll stay, so when you discuss my contract, I'll leave if you'd like, but if you want to have any feedback or discussion, I'll stay around, so hopefully we can come to some type of.
yeah, I think the consensus was, we're not going to have MRB or you in the room when we discuss proposals of contracts. But you're welcome to stay for the other nuts and bolts of this. So, excellent. All right, just wanted to give you a chance to exit. All right, then that moves us to discussion and approval of resolutions. Should be another copy.
There's two over there. We can, since we have no public attending, we can share those.
I stole one.
You stole one, okay.
You got one, Joe?
Okay.
Joe's got one, I've got one.
We got one more here.
Everybody's good? You got one?
You guys need one over there?
Nope, I think we're good.
Everybody on the phone has had those emailed to them, so they have them. So Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you to start taking us through this.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, board resolution number 1 is basically was modeled after the one prepared by MRB and does all the sort of housekeeping that we need to do to get into place. I did not print out the Exhibit A, which are all those attachments. Those are on the Google Drive. So that you can, if you want to look at the procurement policy or the whistleblowing policy, it's there. I don't know if we're going to get an official minute book or not at some point. Usually there's a kit you can order, which maybe we can get. And then, but when that gets put together and has the official minutes and resolutions in it, there will be an attachment. That also has to be updated because it's got approval dates and I'll be inserting those and things like that. So that was the attachments. Item number 2 is merely a recitation of the committees and their members. Item number 3, we needed to appoint a corporation contracting officer. And we discussed that as officers and we thought Carol was appropriate in this case. The contracting officer is basically in charge of the disposition of property. And Tracy, is that your understanding also? That's my understanding.
I'm sorry, could you ask that question again?
Yes, we're going out, there's something called a corporation contracting officer.
Yep.
And that is somebody who's in charge of the disposition of property.
It's like whenever, if you go out to bid on any kind of service, that's the person who's the point person
Okay.
in that bidding process to make sure you don't have people coming and talking to one board member and then another board
Right.
member. And, it just helps make the whole process a little more transparent and
Okay.
streamlined. So that would
Yeah.
just be
So-
essentially who is dealing with that process.
Okay, and we've elected Carol. It's a lot of these things sort of seem to fall to the treasurer by default. We did give her fair warning. But at some point, if we'd like to change that, we can certainly do so. But for purposes of minutes, we did that. We also needed a representative for the corporation for purposes of the public authority reporting system. You'll see a later resolution basically appointing MRB. We have a very, very short time frame. The first report is due November 1st. MRB is certainly in the best position to do that for us, and therefore when we get to it, there'll be a resolution essentially appointing them to do this, and that's why I filled in their name. That is the sum and substance of resolution number 1. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay, then we're gonna do a vote. then.
Actually, sorry. In terms of the Paris certification, you're going to want someone from the organization certifying. That's not, we would be able to put in all the information, but you would want someone from the organization to actually hit the certify button.
Yeah, and that's something we could do certainly.
Yeah, so do we need to, in the resolution, name who that person is, or is it?
That would probably be.
So an officer would be fine, right?
Yep, yep, it could be the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, whoever.
Yeah. Okay.
All right,
You
so
want-
we're gonna have to update this then.
No, I don't think we have to do a resolution to do that as long as it's an officer who's doing it, correct? Tracy?
I would just, what I would do is when you do the motion, just have the motion include the amendment of the chair, or whoever it is, being the certifier.
Okay. Okay, then I guess I will move that this resolution be accepted, subject to an amendment identifying any of the officers as certifiers of the Paris report. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Oh, okay, we're
Now,
gonna,
I'm marking the official. Do you just want me to do this? as
yeah, you
well?
can, or else we can do it later and compare. It's up to you.
Okay.
Nadira is absent. Joe? Mary?
Yes.
Me, yes. Mandy?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Dan?
I,
And Pam?
Yes.
Okay. Moving along. Board resolution number 2 was merely put together to record and commemorate the fact that each of the officers either were village appointed or town appointed, and what their terms are. This was just basically for the convenience of reference. We didn't really have anything to do with these appointments. We're just confirming them. So that everybody knows who's working for whom, not really, but in the event of a vacancy, at least we can track here and see what's going on. So again, any questions, any discussion? Okay, I move that this resolution would be a formal number 2022-10-2 be approved.
I'll motion it. I'll first it and she can do it second. I'll first it.
Okay.
second,
Okay, Joe,
Yes.
Mary,
Oh, yes. We recorded
Kathy,
that.
yes. Mandy,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Dan,
I,
Pam,
Yes.
approved. Okay, board resolution number 3 is the election of officers. Mary's been elected chair, Mandy vice chair, Carol treasurer, and myself secretary. Any questions or discussions?
No.
Do I hear a motion to approve, approve? Second?
I'll second.
And just to do something different, so Joe doesn't have all the pressure. Pam?
Yes.
Dan?
I,
Carol?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Mandy?
Yes.
Kathy? Yes. Mary?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Nadira is absent. Okay, resolution number 4. This is the Club Street project that Christine was mentioning. The officers talked about this and we thought there was some value in essentially getting a report on the Club Street project, because it looks like that there may be projects affiliated with that, which we would be handling. So we thought there was some value in that. The bylaws do allow us to appoint a special committee, which does not have to have a board member on the committee. So that's why I did it the way I did it. But it would be identical to the town. So whatever's that who's on the town committee or village committee, whichever it is, it would just be automatically transferred over here, and they would be, they'd be a committee. We want them to come in for reports occasionally, things like that. So again, do we have a motion to approve the Club Street resolution?
A motion.
Second?
I'll second. Oh,
Okay, Joe?
Yes.
Mary?
yes.
Me, yes. Mandy?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Dan?
I,
Pam?
Yes. Yes.
Moving along here now.
Can we do these out of order?
Yes, we can.
I would like to do them out of order, please. Let's
Okay.
go to 7.
Before we move on to the next one, I just had a quick question.
Yes.
So on the last one, of course, I was fine with that. I voted yes, but is there a place where it's listed who the members are?
did not have that. The only one I know is Christine, but I do not know who the members are.
There is a listing available and either Jane or I can get it to you. It's part of the.
Just out of curiosity, yeah. that'd be great.
No, that's a good point, though. We should know who's on the,
So Pam, will you take an action? Pam will get that to us. Sharon, thank you. Good question. I know some, but I'm not sure I know everybody. So
okay, so you want to jump to
I think we
resolution
should
number
jump to 7.
Okay. 7 is the approval of the budgets. Okay, we have to do a 2022 budget for essentially the last quarter, as well as the 2023 budget. Tracy, it's the 2022 budget that's going to be filed on the 1st.
So the 2022 budget you would want to do as soon as possible. So, yeah.
And so the one that needs to be submitted September 1st, is that our 2023? Or
So
November.
it would be
1st?
both, like technically both need to get done as soon as possible because the 2023 was due September 1st, but obviously you are a new organization. Or it's October 1st, I'm sorry. So you would want to have both done as soon as possible.
Yeah, so there is a proposed budget that I think you've all seen for 2023, which is for the full 100K.
And
So
it's attached.
that's attached. The problem we've got here is 2022. So yes, we can kind of, try to fudge a budget. My only concern, and this is, I want to bring that up to the group, is as I went to the village and the town today to say, so how much is left in these accounts that you had for us and will get transferred to us, as soon as we have our bank account set up. And I was surprised that the village had like $1,700. I'd have to look for the email, but it was a very small amount. And Mary's going to end up having to pay 2 more months rent on the office, right? So basically you can say the village is kind of like, we're not going to get much. Which means whatever we're going to get is whatever the town has. Now, the 60,000 has been talked about, but I also, at least what Michelle Bouchard told me in emails, was that the town had been giving payments to the village to pay Scott. So I don't know how much, for 2022 as part of that contract, because that's the money they had to pay for that.
That might be a separate budget line.
But the only thing is, this is my own personal thing, before I commit any money, I kind of want to know how much money's in the checkbook. Now, I know it's going to be there not January 1st, because we're not going to get the town's money until March, and we're not going to get the village's money until June.
You're not gonna get the town's 23 money until March.
Right, so maybe
You get the 22, which there is.
but an unknown
much is
amount,
that? Yeah.
right? So we've got to operate from the day we open our bank account to March with whatever money basically the village is going to give us. So considering we have potential expenses, like we know we have insurance we have to do, right? I'm making it very clear, I am signing nothing financial as the chair until I have director insurance. So we kind of have to know what that is so that can be done. We have to start our 501c3 paperwork. That's an accounting firm. It's a long form. We have to get money to do that. So we know there are things we have to spend money on, and we don't know what's in the checkbook. So I think I feel, and Tracy, I feel there's a sense of urgency, not even so much from Paris, but from my own, how are we going to manage this thing, to have an idea of how much money we have before we start committing any money. Is anybody else in agreement with that point of view?
Makes sense.
100%.
Is this what we have for a budget? Did we add a legal line to it?
We
For
added,
legal expenses?
we didn't add a legal line to 23. We added the insurance, but there was a consulting.
Engineering and consulting, so that's how,
Legal is in there?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
we kind of did it, but because honestly, when we did it, Pam, we
Yeah.
weren't sure all the stuff we might need.
Right.
And we still aren't 100%
We're
sure yet.
still not 100%.
I just know that the legal cost that Mary was paying checks, the remaining checks, and there was legal, every time somebody calls the attorney, it's been charged to the development committee. So I don't know what that total was, but that dwindled it down. And then the owl. And I think included in the number that she gave you was rent through the end of the year taken out of that.
Oh, okay, she
talked
wasn't
about that.
specific about that, so I was
I
taking the
think
rent
so.
out.
I'll double check because we talked about this. We had a special meeting for another. To
Oh, for
approve
the IMA.
So
Yeah.
we talked about that.
Yeah. So anyway, so I understand the sense of urgency. I guess my thing is, I would, because the rent on the office isn't much whether it's in or out. But so Dan, once you give us that, then what I'll attempt to do is take a spreadsheet and say, this is kind of what I know we're going to get in and, between now and the end of the year. And then this is what we can purchase between now and the end of the year.
From what I got from Tina, you got 60 for 22 and 60 for 23.
I understand. I just
Out of
want
the
that
60,
confirmed.
60% of my salary would be 19,500. So there should be 40,500 left in the town account if they have not paid anything other than my salary.
And I think that could be a separate line item contractually. with the
See,
town.
but this is like, in my mind, this is
That's the
too
problem.
important to
Yes.
guess.
Yeah.
This is
Right.
the problem.
I get it. I'm just telling you what I know now, and I'll get what I can get for you.
I appreciate
understand.
that. I'm just making sure we're clear, Dan.
Okay, we're clear.
Okay.
And
Speaking
let
to
me,
Mary, they hadn't sent anything other than my salary. So if they allocated $60,000 to transfer to the village and you take out 60% of my salary, they should have 40,500.
Yeah, and I appreciate the ballparking, but I think, again, we're gonna open a bank account, hopefully. So I guess my real question is, I don't think we can do 7 because we don't have 2022.
well, that's what I was just gonna ask Tracy of what we can do. It sounds like we won't have a budget that everyone's comfortable with 2022. We do have a budget for 2023. Can we just file that on November 1 and then get the other one in as soon as possible?
It's not a balance, it's a budget.
Well, that's why we're trying to refine this a little bit too, but can we do that, Tracy?
I
Are there
don't
any
know if
penalties involved?
2023 will even open without 2022 being filed. I would have to,
Okay,
Why don't we just do the
Go
budget
back
off
and
what we
look.
know the villages, and then when we have the town money, we'll have that extra. Because right in 2022, we don't, what our expenses are. And
well,
it's a
the
budget.
budget doesn't necessarily have to tie to our expenses.
Right, so why
and-
don't we just use that 1,700, whatever, 1,700 as the budget? And then, because we have 3 days, we're not, and Dan might not be able to find out, and we're not gonna, I don't want, we can't hold
So-
up. So why don't we just use that and say, well, this is our budget, we have $1,700, period.
And we're not,
We
gonna spend any money between now and the end of December.
We can't if we don't have it, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Can we do that, Tracy?
sure, yeah.
There.
All right, I'm going to.
Honestly, it could be a full zero budget.
Yeah, I mean, because honestly, we don't know when the bank account's gonna open. We don't know when we're gonna get the money. So, all right.
What I would like to do is approve this resolution because it does approve the budgets.
Okay,
What can we, I don't know, Tracy, what can we put in here and as an amendment to cover us adding the 2022 budget when it's finalized?
I would say, I mean, if that's what you're gonna go for is the let's say 1,700 in operating revenue and 0 expenses. You could just you could do an amendment to the resolution specifying that, saying motion to approve the resolution with the amendment of
The
2022.
2022 budget would be approximately $1,700 and no expenses.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Okay, all right, then we're good with that. So,
And if we get more, we get more, we gotta run it like, we have a checkbook.
yeah, no, all good points. I mean, you don't write checks when you don't have any money.
So, all right, so that sounds good. So,
Okay, so
Tracy, what do you need from me in order? So you've got the 2023 spreadsheet. What do you need from me on 22? Just an email?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, I will take it to send her an email with that. And I'll copy everybody.
Okay, so I move that we approve resolution number 2022-10-7, approving the 2023 budget as attached and approving a 2022 budget consisting of revenue or income of approximately $1,700 and no expenses.
I nominate to. Don't ever have to do.
Mandy motions for
Motion,
that.
thank
We
you.
need- Yeah, we need a.
We'll get the hang of this
We
I
got
don't
a
eventually.
know,
second.
something about the budget.
Joe, oh, what?
Yep, Joe's the second.
Yeah, I'll say.
Okay. Joe, yes or no? Yes, no, or
Yes.
abstain? Yes. Mary,
Yes.
myself, yes. Mandy,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Ann,
I,
and Pam.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, resolution 2022-10-8. This is approving the intermunicipal agreement. This is basically just formalizes the relationship between ourselves and the town and the village so they can transfer money, so they can do what they need to do to keep us in operating. I don't know if anybody's read it, if anybody has any questions about it, that both the town and the village have signed it. We are prepared to sign it this evening. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, I move that resolution number 2022-10-8 be approved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Pam,
Yes.
Dan,
I,
Carol,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Mandy,
Yes.
Kathy, yes, Mary,
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Okay, we're done. Resolution 2022-10-9. This is resolutions authorizing the opening of a bank account with Governor Savings and Loan Association, which is the former Cape Vincent Citizens Bank. It's pretty straightforward. I can't own ownership of all this language here, but it's just sort of an enabling resolution. Governor does not have their own form of resolution. That's why we did our own here. What we will do is, if this is approved, we will give them something called an attestation, which is a secretary, it's probably as chairperson, that these are the resolutions in place, these are the officers, and they will at that time issue a signature card, and then we can take it from there. So again, pretty standard stuff. Do I move that the resolution number 2022-10-9 be approved?
A motion.
Second.
Okay, Joe,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
me, yes. Amanda,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Ann,
I,
Pam.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 2022-10-10. Resolution amending the procurement and lobbying policy to authorize the treasurer to make discretionary purchases, grant approvals, and other authority. This was something that the finance committee discussed. When you read our procurement policy, they have a line that says that discretionary expenditures can be, or expenditures less than $1,000 can be made at the discretion of the executive director. The other thing that we determined was that the executive director under the bylaws cannot be a director. So we are in a situation here where theoretically, we don't have an executive director who can make the discretionary purchases or designate someone to do it on his behalf. So all we were going to do here is say it's the executive director or the treasurer who can do this, depending on, but it's not both of them. We're not creating a situation where you've got to get a consensus between the two of them. It's just the treasurer or the executive director. Any questions, comments? Okay. Then I move that resolution number 2022-10-10 be approved.
A motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Joe,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Kathy, yes. Mandy,
Yes.
Sharon,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Dan,
yes,
Pam.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, Board resolution number 2022-10-11. This is the video conferencing resolution. And as Tracy mentioned, we really do need a policy in place before we can officially have people attend by video conference. What I did to craft the resolution was basically went through the law, picking out what the law, in this public meeting law, which is referenced in this document, what they say we have to do. It's a lot. I don't know if anybody's really had a chance to digest it, want to talk about it. We may not be able to put this in place until the next meeting. What I saw was certainly that we always have to have a quorum here. Otherwise, we can't use video conferencing. Accessibility to the public, notice to the public, their ability to participate. I was also sort of impressed, and again, Tracy, you may have some comments, and I don't mean that in a good way, that how they really were trying to make sure the only time you use video conferencing is, dire need, childcare, illness, that type of thing. I think given Nadira's situation, we're going to have we get to specify to a certain extent what constitutes unavailability for a meeting. And I think that's important that we exercise some discretion there. The other thing is, I think that's going to be really important to put in the policy is notice. Because for some reason, if we end up in a situation where 5 of us want to do a video conference for various reasons, that's not a quorum physically present. So we need to be able to take action to postpone the meeting, cancel the meeting, whatever. So without that policy in place, we really can't do too much with this tonight, but maybe for next time. I don't know if we want to, maybe the officers can come up with a first draft. I think Christine mentioned that she might have a sample.
Yeah, I think she got one from the mayor's.
Yep, from the mayor's attorney's office that maybe we can use as a reference so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But again, if you want to just take a look at this, those are basically the statutory requirements, because that's all
I can forward you Christine, I gave it to her.
Oh, okay, perfect. And like I said, so maybe what we can do is we can have that in place.
Huh? The other thing, this does say can be heard and seen. I think you
Yes.
need to change it to must. The camera has to be on.
Okay,
They have to be, their video has to be on. Like some people just put their name up there.
Or, yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
can, they must be on.
yeah, the thing is, the statute says can, I just basically
I'm-
copied it, but you're saying that they interpret it as must.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have to have the video on to legally participate in both.
Okay,
Are we in compliance tonight?
yes.
Well.
Well, we're in compliance with being seen and heard, but not with,
Don't count towards anything.
huh?
Their votes don't count towards anything.
Well, that was interesting, because maybe Tracy can say something about it. I thought she said their votes count, but.
If you have a policy in place already, since you
Place,
don't
okay,
have
so-
a policy, their votes technically won't
Well,
count.
it technically speaking, but it's also a possibility that who really cares, as long as we have a clear vote with at least the 5 people here. I think
I
it's,
guess,
or
yeah,
6 people here. I think it's
Yeah, no,
important for all of our members to
We've
be
approved
heard.
everything, I just.
Yeah. But yeah, no,
How the minutes are-
technically speaking, we don't have a video conferencing capability.
Well, and the minutes should reflect the 6 that are here.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. My minutes will, the form, which I also got from the ABO, is basically says members present in person, board members present remotely, and board members absent. That will all be recorded for each of these, and also with the fact that there was a quorum present.
the
So,
other thing we are missing is that we did not notify the public that there was a
Yeah.
call-in number, which, it's kind of this first meeting is kind of a chicken and the egg, right?
Yeah.
Because we couldn't pass the resolution
I
until we.
thought they kind of amended that too, though.
It's not
We
the
have
most,
to
this is
notify
not
the
the most
public?
current law.
yeah, it's the most current law that we saw, but to a certain extent, it's a moot point, because we have a quorum here, we have 6 people voting.
Oh, yeah,
which is
no,
which is a majority, no matter which way you look at it,
If
so.
you advertise like your meetings for the year, we meet the last Thursday at this
Yep.
time at this place, and if you have the same reoccurring Zoom link, You don't have to post that every month.
Yeah.
You advertise at the beginning of the year and that covers you the whole year unless you have a special meeting.
Yeah, but those are the details we've got to become familiar with, because if we're going to be able to use this, which is going to be important for us because of Nadira's situation, we've got to have we got to do all this stuff. And it's,
So on this
congratulations, Joe. It's all going to be on the website.
Yeah, that's
So
what you
in-
just post on the website.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So
Yeah.
Dear is gonna be present for any meeting. She lives in Manhattan full time or?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
She's up here.
She will be up
Once in a blue, yeah,
But
and
it's
so,
not frequent.
yeah, but we just, in the event, her voice should be heard, so we should really have this in place so that we can do it. But that's also why I think we have to look at the policy to make sure that we.
So we
enable that.
can't do anything with this.
I think we have to table
We have to table number
11 until we have an opportunity to deal
And
with
then
it.
Tracy, if we write up this policy, are you someone who's comfortable in looking it over and saying, yeah, you need to worry about these things, or is that not something where it's an
I mean,
expectation?
I can tell you if it's in line with the other policies that I've seen. And
Okay.
one thing to remember is that you'll need to schedule a public hearing prior to passing a resolution. So you'll need to pass a resolution to schedule a public hearing, and then after the public hearing, address the resolution. So that if you think you're going to do this at your next meeting tonight, perhaps the resolution or your motion is to schedule a public hearing, which then between now and your next meeting, you go ahead and do those notices so that you can hold the public hearing prior to your next meeting and then vote on the resolution.
I think, I'm just my own personal opinion. I think that our next meeting I thought was November 10th.
It is.
And I think that time frame is
Yeah.
tight just to get the policy together and everything
Yeah.
else. So,
No.
yeah, if it was at the end of November, I'd say absolutely. But I think that's, that's basically
Okay.
a couple days, not a couple days, but to get a public hearing scheduled, get the draft together, get the public hearing done, all that kind of stuff.
All
So,
right. So at our next meeting, we will look at a draft policy and do the resolution for the public meeting.
But the public hearing comes at the beginning of our meeting, does it not?
Right.
You could do it right before, you could do it whenever you want. Typically, what I've seen groups doing is having the public hearing and then doing their regular meeting.
I was gonna say, you could schedule a public hearing for the December meeting at 5:15 if you wanted. to.
Yeah, that's a good
And
idea.
Just address the resolution, pass the resolution, and then start your 5:30 meeting, and then that is in effect.
Okay, great.
that's perfect. Yeah,
That
good
would-
idea.
Not even 5:15, you can do it for 5:25 because it's gonna
Yeah,
take
yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna speak.
Yeah.
You could advertise a public hearing at 5:25. Open floor, pass the resolution, close your special meeting, and then start your regular meeting with that resolution in effect.
And have the Christmas party right after. Anyway,
Exactly.
okay.
Priorities.
Exactly. All right.
Okay, so that will be tabled until review the policy next meeting, and then hopefully have a public hearing and enacting it for our December meeting.
All right. Is that it?
Yes, except for the ones we need to still consider, which was resolution number 6 and resolution number 5.
Five. All right.
So I think at this point, maybe we can have Tracy leave and Scott leave.
Tracy, is there anything else before we have you guys leave? And Scott, that we're missing from an organizational resolution perspective that we did not cover?
You did all the policies.
Yes,
We did, yeah, through the bylaws.
No, I think you should be good to go.
All right, so the one question before I let you go, and I should have thought of this earlier when we were looking at the board members and what their terms were. Well, for example, Joe, you're a one-year term because we want this rotation to happen differently. Our bylaws say that we should start January 1, right? That we have to elect officers and.
at the
do-
annual meeting, which is January apparently.
So my question is for discussion is we've all sort of been acting in these things for months, right? While we waited for the incorporation. Are we counting the, November and December as year 1? Or are we just going to say, yeah, I mean, so let's just talk about it. I mean, Tracy, maybe get some advice from you because you helped us with the bylaws. It feels to me, and I'm seeing some head shaking here in the room, that we just say, we're gonna do this now, and in January, we're just gonna do those resolutions again, except it's gonna be full year. And so Joe, I'm using you as an example because you're the 1 year guy in the room, right? Joe is really going to be, these next few months officially plus all of next year. And then January of 24 is when we would start, where you could re-up. How, does that make sense, Tracy? Are we okay? Or are we gonna be in trouble with that?
Yeah, that's fine. You could either have the resolution set up as, I guess you already did it tonight, so it doesn't really matter. But you could have that set up to say everybody's serving until January 1 and terms start January 1, or you could just redo the resolution in January. Either is fine.
I didn't just redo it. All right, good, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Scott or Tracy before we have them leave? And thank you for sitting here while we had the sausage made.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yes.
Tracy, are you good
Thank
then?
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Tracy.
so much. We really
Bye.
appreciate it. I'll get you that email tomorrow.
Sounds good. Bye.
All right, thanks.
Quickly, your
Yes.
Club Street Committee, I forwarded to Pam, so she gives you guys Ray Stone, Mike Shavastay, Nicole Paramore, Holly Bowman,
Holly Bonane.
Bonane, Pam, Danny, Tim Maloney, Christine, and myself.
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. That's
She's got
good.
it, I forwarded it to her, so she.
Yeah.
can
And
send
Sharon,
it.
you could hear that? You're on mute.
Yes, I'm on mute. Yes, I can hear that. Yes, thank you.
And you could hear Scott well?
Not super clear, but then did he also say he was forwarding that list over?
Yes, he was.
Pam.
Yeah, because you speak quietly, and I was just curious how well it was working. So that was the,
Scott, is there also, I know the East End Park Committee is just kind of formal right now, but if, and this is something we can discuss later, but if there are projects that come up for this committee to finalize, like step 2, 3, 4 for East End Park, we might want a committee, I think the village owns those grants. We might want them to have a committee so we stay involved, stay informed, just like the Club
I would
Street.
say for future projects, this project's gonna go out to bid in 2 weeks and
Right, but it's not, is it gonna be bid and done, or is there gonna be phase 2 for East End Park?
phase 2, it will be across the street next door to you. So,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
we can
that's
have
what I
that
was-
discussion then, but this waterfront grant and the ready is
It's done
gonna
then.
be bid and done
Okay.
and out.
Okay, okay, that answers
We're
that
really
question then.
just throwing 5 people in the room, so we checked the boxes of the committee, because it was already done.
Right.
Like, I mean, it was designed as part of ready, so
Yeah.
there wasn't really, I mean, we had public hearing, we had a
Right.
public meeting,
Yeah.
and
Okay,
plans were presented, so.
okay, thank you.
all right, good, great.
That was Marty. We do have 2 lines. We have a Scott Bertle salary. We have a $60,000 line for 22 and budgeted 60 for 23.
So they are going to transfer $60,000 into our account as soon as we have one.
And the other issue is if for some reason we aren't prepared to take it, they will transfer it to the LDC account held by the village because we have to spend it in 2022 because it's budgeted.
Okay.
So either way,
Which they may transfer some if Mary needs money to pay bills.
Yeah.
They might have to before.
if we're not
If you've got,
established with the bank. with
you've
the,
got
you
legal
know,
bills and other things.
Well, I think Carol was gonna basically, as soon as the officers were approved, she's gonna file for the EIN, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah,
and
I-
once we have the EIN, we can open a bank account and
Right.
we're in business.
That sounds good.
So
Excellent, good deal. So then it sounds to me like I add 60,000 to the
17.
17 and that's our opening budget
Yeah.
for 22. All right.
So do we have to amend it again, the resolution, because we amended it to have 1,700 worth of income and now it's up to 61,700.
61,700.
I filed at 17 and just leave it alone.
Yeah, I would too.
If the
Okay.
money shows up there, then you can go back and do an amended budget, but
Yeah.
I
And
would-
All right,
it's
good.
22.
But how
I'm happy.
you wrote it, that anything additional or minimum of or something, that's how you
With
said
no
it. so-
expenses.
Okay,
Yeah.
and zero expenses, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
any more, I think we're covered.
Yeah, let's just
Okay.
make it as easy as we can.
Yeah,
for
let's just- yeah.
22.
And Tracy's gone, so she'll be expecting the 1,700
She
from
will.
you, so.
She will.
She won't
Okay,
even
great.
know you got an extra 60 grand coming. so.
Geez,
Yeah.
I wish that had happened at home. you know? Okay, great. All right, Scott, thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
Scott.
Just technical, you might want to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel and contracts. So it's not in your minutes and it's not in public session.
That makes sense.
And do we still record?
She takes notes, so there's proof of what's taken, but they don't go in the minutes.
All right, so I can turn the recording off at this
You
point.
won't turn the recording off, and if there was any public up there, you would kick them out.
Okay,
But you can talk about personnel and contracts and executive and financial discussion, so you can talk about it in executive.
excellent. All
Thank you,
right.
Scott.
So thank you.
When
So,
you- I'm gonna hang out if there's any negotiations or talking that you want to do, so I'll be outside. So when you come out of executive, if you want to grab me, if you want to talk, or you can invite people into executive. So if you want me to come back in and talk while we're in executive, if we're discussing negotiations, I'll be here.
all right,
Sounds
good.
good.
The village
Thank you
town
very much.
wanted us to
All right,
come
so
in.
those of you on the phone, I am going to turn off the recording, and we are going to go into
Well,
executive.
let's make the motion first.
Okay,
I move that we go into executive session to discuss personnel related matters, including contracts. Okay. Everybody, I guess, do we have to vote on this now? I think we're all in favor. Is everyone in favor?
yes.
Yes, I just had one question now. I just noticed this when I was scanning it, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it looked like the Scott's talk was said 45K yearly, but then in the budget, we have 35K.
Yeah, that's part of what we got to talk about.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to stop the recording at this point, and we are now in executive session. And guys. So resuming our agenda from executive session, our first discussion is insurance. Carol, do you want to just give a brief update, and then we'll go into EIN, and hopefully Dan will be back and be able to give his update on insurance. This should go pretty quick.
So on the insurance, I did get 2 quotes. I think it was decided that Dan and Kathy are going to talk through them and hopefully get a 3rd quote and make a decision. Right?
Yeah, I think we covered insurance, to be honest.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Carol, EIN.
The EIN, now that we're formed, I am willing to sign that form without insurance because it's just an EIN. And I will hopefully apply for that tomorrow. And I should get the number tomorrow, which then takes us to bank account, which we can have a bank account. I think there is a discussion there. We talked about 3 signers, needing 2 out of 3 people to sign. And I think that's a discussion that needs to be amongst the whole group.
Yeah, it does.
Is Dan back in yet or no?
He's just dropping back in.
Because your camera's frozen for some reason on my computer. How about you, Sharon? Are they moving?
Yeah, it's frozen as well. It's focused on Mandy and Dan, but it's frozen.
Yeah, and that's how mine's been for quite a bit.
It keeps popping up that our internet connection's not great, so that might be why.
Okay, so that's fine. So is Dan back in the room?
Yeah.
Yes, Dan is back in the room. So
Okay. So regarding bank account signing, Dan, we were thinking Dan, Mary, and Carol would be signers on the bank account, and any check actually written would need 2 of those 3 people to sign it. How's everybody feel about that?
Wonderful.
okay, so yeah, but this brings up we have to just go into the Zoom and share your screen. This brings up the whole issue with executive director versus voting member. I know, Dan, I don't want to talk about it either. Sorry.
No, I'm exhausted. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
So here's the situation. The way our bylaws are written, the executive director cannot vote. Dan was gracious enough to be the acting executive director, and he is dual hatted because he's the town board and he is a voting member, which is why we changed the procurement policy so that we could get around that, right? And so Carol can do the procurement piece until we hire an executive director. And then we don't want to change the bylaws, because when we hire an executive director, we don't want them voting. That was a big discussion when we set this up. So there's a couple of ways we can handle this. One way is we're all volunteering our time doing things. Dan keeps doing everything he's doing. He just doesn't call himself executive director. and he is then a voting member on the board. Or he becomes the acting executive director, and then we got to tell Marty to give us another board member. I mean, those are kind of
That's not gonna happen.
yeah. So I mean, it feels to me like, because you a million times said you don't care what we call you.
I've
So-
been called a lot of things in my life.
So all of that to say, Carol, the reason I'm bringing it up, if Dan just sort of continues to do what he's doing, but not call himself executive director, then we don't have a problem. He keeps voting the way he is. He's part of our.
But I don't think it matters, but whatever. I mean, we talked about this with MRB and they were like, you're fine.
Yeah.
But whatever.
All
Like I
right.
said.
So if that's the case, then the signing, Dan's not signing as an executive director. We would have him signing as a board member.
Agree.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay.
All right. Next on the agenda is the EIN, Carol? Or
The
no,
EIN, I will, I'm
501
gonna,
No, that's fine. 501c3.
okay, that we're gonna want a CPA to file for us. We're gonna look at some CPAs. I feel pretty confident that Bowers is gonna be who we choose, but can look at many, it doesn't matter. That 501c3 takes a long time anyways. The and there's also an ST 119.2, which is a New York State tax exempt form. So if we buy something, we don't have to pay sales tax on it. That one looks pretty basic. I'm pretty sure I can file that.
Okay.
But I think we need to look at CPAs anyways, because it's not just a 501c3, it's the annual audit, which we'll have to have every year. So we want to talk to a couple of different accounting firms, and that's that's an easy RFP. And I think in that case, it should be done because it should make Kathy happier.
Thank you, Carol.
And Carol, we'll have to do an audit on 2022, right?
Yeah,
Quarter, yeah.
Yeah.
even though
okay.
it's a short year, it's a year.
Yeah, okay. All right, next up is the website, and can you guys see Joe's screen? Well, my screen?
Mhm.
Yes, they're shaking their head. Okay, Joe, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm gonna send an email out with the questions I have, and there's a few things I wanted to look at and things I don't know. So I know we decided the projects are not from the LDC, so we want to have them on there, but we can't claim there's something that we did. So I just put our vision, which is everything I took from the document that MRB made.
Okay.
If everyone wants to just read through the website when I put it live, when I go home, if there's any spelling errors or things you think need to be changed, any of the verbiage. But I'll put all my questions in the email to everyone,
Okay, great.
such as the phone number. I don't know if we have a phone number.
Oh.
If we want to pay for a one account for a Google Teams for an LDC account that we can store all the Google Docs on. All the contacts can go there and be forwarded to all of us if we want. So if someone from the town wants to ask us a question or has a comment, it'll go to all of us. We could talk who's the point person to respond to any inquiries.
Mhm.
Battery's running low, so we might lose everyone.
Okay,
I just put our team on here, so it's one of the requirements from the state.
okay.
We can decide if we're gonna do pictures later.
Yeah. It looks great.
Yeah, projects.
Yeah, this is good.
But prior to the LDC being formed, the dedicated citizens, Cape Vincent have planned, funded projects, all that. So this is not anything we did. But as we do it, they'll be moved up top. These will start moving down, and all our new projects will be more in depth.
see it.
And the logo, it looks fantastic.
does.
Oh my God, I love the logo.
So meetings, all our meetings will be on here.
And I can give you the
For the
Zoom
year.
link and all, that. We can get that in.
Yeah, so as of January 1st of next year.
Once we have
we'll
a
have every
policy,
meeting.
absolutely.
I posted the agenda that you sent. I don't know if we want to amend that. I also made a quick letterhead, and there's a template in the Google Drive. I can make one for each person if you want to have everyone's contact information on emails and all that. Now, the compliance section.
Well done, Joe.
That
Yeah,
was great.
beautiful.
Sure.
It's great. It's great.
So this is everything we're gonna have to be in compliance. I couldn't find the conflict of interest policy. I don't know. if
It should
that's-
be attached to the bylaws.
It's
in-
under ethics.
Okay. so
It's
maybe
under
it's-
ethics. There's a separate form that we all have to sign, I think.
Hmm.
Okay, I'll find
Yeah, I
it.
sent
Compliance
you the
calendar, but
Yeah,
Hmm?
Compliance calendar, I did send that out, didn't I?
it is part of
Yeah.
this compliance
Yeah, it's part of
calendar,
it.
yeah.
It's part of the framework.
But I don't think there's a compliance policy
Yeah.
unless it's not named that, let's put it that way.
so we have most of everything that exists now, I think. So the board members are listed. Organizational chart I'll make real quick. The bylaws are here. I just put them in separate files, so it'll be easier for people to digest.
Oh,
I
nice.
organized it. and-
Oh, it's great. God, I don't have to use the binder anymore.
Yeah.
I can just.
I just still can't get over the logo. I love it. It's just